On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, it's the Alabama preview. Mizzou going down to T-Town, Tuscaloosa to face number 15 Alabama. We previewed the game. I kind of stepped in as the expert for this one. We've said it on the show before, but my other gig is covering Alabama, so I'm well familiar with the Crimson Tide. So I served as the de facto guest for the preview for this one. Gave all my takes on Bama, takes on the game, previewed matchups that Mizzou can exploit. We talked a whole bunch of injuries, obviously, with the Drew Pine thing and everything that might come up for Mizzou with who might be available on Saturday. And as a note, we recorded the show on Thursday afternoon, so it was before the Thursday SEC availability report came out. So we said Mookie Cooper was doubtful. He has since been downgraded to out. So we're recording this, and you'll hear this and see this before the Friday report. Nate Noel, Brady Cook, still doubtful as far as we know right now. Obviously, things could change between now and Saturday, but want to throw that out there for any people listening maybe in the future if their injury statuses change. But other than that, yeah, we dove into everything. Just on the Mizzou side, on the Bama side, gave our score picks and predictions to end the show. Going to be an interesting one, especially if Cook can be healthy for it, I think. So, dive into that. Great preview. I guess I'm patting myself on the back for that one, but they're always great previews. You know how it is in the Unwritten Rule. And then, we finished with quick hits, did our jerseys, Shawnee's main birds of the week, and the best things we learned. Talked a little Mizzou there, talked a little college football there. I got a little NBA in there, much to the chagrin of Payton because the NBA is back, but good segment of quick hits as well to get you guys all previewed up for Alabama. Without any further ado, the Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to the Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, October 25th, and it's homecoming. But not for Missouri, for Alabama. But Missouri's trying to spoil it. The Tigers march on down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama on Saturday. You're listening to this show on Friday. The Tigers number 21, Alabama number 15. Game, 2:30 p.m. in Bryant-Denny Stadium. You can see it on ABC or ESPN+. Missouri, at least on ESPN bet.
That's enough of that, Jack. Enough. No more of that. You are done hosting the show for today. It is going to be The Unwritten Rule with Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren featuring Jack Knowlton because it's time for you to put your real-life job to good use. So, Knowlton, you, of course, we've mentioned it several times on the show. You cover Alabama athletics for Tide Illustrated on the Rivals Network. So I think it is befitting for Kenny and I to grill you about Alabama. A woeful Alabama squad for Alabama squad standards. Sitting here at 5-2 with a loss to Vanderbilt. That's not very Bama-like. Very surprising. A game that I think we can all agree here, the loser is done. The loser's season is over. There is no chance, I think. Maybe a very small chance for Mizzou if they lose. No chance for Alabama if they lose of getting to the playoff. But it's not looking good for Missouri. I mean, despite having, it's not like on paper, I think this looks a little more even, but Vegas does not agree. It's currently a 17-point spread in favor of the Crimson Tide as we sit here and record this. Knowlton, I think we'll just start with what's gone wrong for this Bama team. I mean, the last few weeks have just not been Bama-like. They went out, they beat Georgia, and kind of like emphatically stamped like we're still Alabama, like we're the best team in the nation. And I mean, right after that, you give up 40 to Vanderbilt, lose. You beat South Carolina, but you escaped South Carolina at home, mind you. And then big rivalry game up on Rocky Top, 24-17 loss. The offense did not look good at all. Knowlton, break it down for the common folk of Kenny and I. What's been going wrong for this Bama squad?
Yeah, like I mean, I think just this game in general, it's like kind of a battle of two teams sort of looking to find themselves. You know, you kind of Bama going into that Vanderbilt game, they literally put mouse traps around their facility, did the whole trap game thing, and still kind of fell victim to that. And then you thought, well, okay, the national narrative, of course, too, is being like, this Vanderbilt team's pretty good. They're ranked now. We on this podcast are Diego Pavia guys. Bama had an opportunity against South Carolina to show something and just bounce back, have a get right game. And then they didn't do that. They won that game by 2 points. They struggled, made some really weird halftime decisions. They could have been up by 2 scores at halftime, so they were only up by like 4. And yeah, it's just been kind of a strange time since. This is a team that, like, it seems like they're struggling for identity a little bit, which is weird because they have a lot of veterans on this team. There was kind of this group when Kalen DeBoer took over of leaders from the last Saban team that came back, guys like obviously Milroe, Tyler Booker, an offensive lineman. They have Malachi Moore, a safety, who's like a 5-year guy, been on this team forever. All of them are captains. And like, yet there's just like, there's not really an identity with this team, or at least they haven't showed it. They really have not put a complete game together since they played Wisconsin 2 weeks before that Georgia game. Because of course, against Georgia, they nearly blew it. They needed some heroics from Ryan Williams. They got a pick from a true freshman at the end of that game. It's just, it's kind of the same things I feel like I've noticed with Mizzou from like, through that Texas A&M game, where you're just like, this team should be better than it's playing, but it just doesn't look like it wants it at times. And, the guys you were kind of expecting to be leaders, it doesn't look like they put a stamp on this program. DeBoer's kind of said over and over, like, even though this team has a lot of talent, it's still a process. It's a new coaching staff, all this stuff. But yeah, they've just looked kind of void of creativity and stuff like that. Against Tennessee, Jalen Milroe threw the ball 45 times in that game. It was pretty sloppy. And yeah, once again, this weekend is kind of a get right opportunity for them, but I don't know, it's going to be weird if Brady Cook plays or not, but they've not looked convincing even in games that they should respond in. So yeah, you mentioned reeling. I mean, and now you're at the point where your back's against the wall, at least coming off of Vandy. You're like, all right, you can afford another loss. Now you can't. Like you said, you lose another game, there's no playoff for you, especially if it's to a Missouri team that's also been struggling.
Imagine a number not next to the Alabama Crimson Tide after this week. That would even be crazier. I like what you mentioned there. You're looking for that identity. I think these two teams are kind of in a similar spot in that regard, but Tigers are also coming off a win where they saw their quarterback and Missouri hero come back from the hospital and do something like that. Still, like you mentioned, not totally sure if he's going to play this weekend, listed as doubtful in the Wednesday injury report. But looking ahead, I mean, for this Alabama team and just the fan base in general, because they've been in a position they haven't been in before. We deal with message boards a lot, Jack. We see these kinds of things. Even on the Mizzou side, there's a lot of fans that are, a little bit optimistic for how the season will finish out. But there's still a lot that just don't think this team is in the same spot it was last year. Where's the fan base right now for the Alabama Crimson Tide?
Good question. I had an enjoyable car ride back from Knoxville after they lost to Tennessee, listening to like a call-in show. Obviously, yeah, the message board, the phrase that keeps ringing in my head and has rung in my head all week is, it's really true what they say, that the backup quarterback is really the most popular man on campus, because, I think there's been a lot of talk about that. Jalen Milroe has not looked good in his last few games. He struggled with turnovers. I mentioned the 45 pass attempts he had against Tennessee. That's the most he's thrown in a game as a starter at Alabama. He targeted Ryan Williams 19 times, the freshman receiver. I think Alabama's next highest wideout had like 6. So it was just a really weird game for him. And he's just totally in a funk right now. And obviously, from a fan base perspective, there's a lot that want to see the next guy step in. And of course the arguments, which I support, that Milroe is still very much the best guy to quarterback this team, but he really looks like a guy that needs the bye week desperately, which is what Alabama has after Missouri. So there's a lot of that. Obviously, a lot of Kalen DeBoer stuff. We heard this week. We talked to one of Alabama's tight ends, CJ Dupree, and he kind of mentioned that they're looking to get back to basics and talked about things like, tucking your shirts in meetings and wearing ties to games and school and showing up to class on time. And a lot of fans took that and ran with that as like is there a big culture problem on this team? I took those comments more to mean, something like, if I can't trust you to do those things, how can I trust you on the field type thing? So I think that was a little bit overblown, but that's led to, of course, a lot of conversation. Is DeBoer the right guy? This isn't the Pac-12 anymore. Kind of all these things just continue to be amplified. And I think a lot of people get mad about how, he's a very even keel guy. He doesn't change up or down, no matter, win or lose. And I think they kind of want to see that fire. They want to see him get a little bit angry and animated. I mean, shoot, they're criticizing everything down to what shirt he wears on the sidelines. So I was amazed there wasn't more of that talk after Tennessee. But yeah, it's just, a lot of arguing. There's a lot of fans too that are like, the real Bama fans stick with this guy. You're just a fake fan if you are already out on DeBoer. And so, yeah, it's a mess. It's kind of an entertaining mess when you look at it from an outside perspective, but there's a lot of anger at sort of different things, whether it's Milroe and his form or DeBoer and just kind of his style.
I mean, and let's kind of look at this matchup, just from a both of these teams need it standpoint. I mean, let's face it, if Alabama wins their next 5 games and goes 10-2, they're going to be in the playoff. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So Alabama is not dead. If they lose, they are almost certainly dead, I would think. But a lot of has been made over this last week, which Bama team is going to, this is a really good test for Kalen DeBoer, I think. Because which Bama team is going to show up against Missouri? Are they going to get a checked out Bama team that just doesn't really care anymore? I know you mentioned leadership has been maybe a little shaky. Now people are wondering if there's a culture problem, or are they going to go out and play desperate and angry? Okay, now we don't have a margin for error and we need to go out and win every game. I personally know which Bama team I think Missouri is going to get. I think they're going to get the angry, desperate one that's going to pull out every stop to win. But I'm curious, Jack, just being around this team all the time. I mean, which one do you think is going to show up on Saturday?
Yeah, that's a good question, Payton, to be honest.
Good question.
I think, I've been going back and forth with that kind of for a while because the surface level thing for me is, well, if they couldn't show up for a get right game after losing to a bad Vanderbilt team, Tennessee wasn't necessarily a game everyone had Alabama tabbed to win. I think when I did my preseason predictions for them, I think I had them losing that game. So that one didn't come as a shock. So I wonder, how do you rally from that? But I think just the general, you have 2 losses now, what's on the line. The kind of ladder should show up. I think the Alabama team, the closer to what you're thinking, that's hungry, that wants it, will show up, or at least should. I mean, and I think the other thing they're probably looking at a little bit, this can kind of get into the matchup stuff, is Missouri on paper is just a lot better of a matchup for Alabama to me than even South Carolina and Vanderbilt. Not to say Missouri's worse than those teams, but I think South Carolina and Vanderbilt did a lot of smart stuff with the option that I don't think Mizzou does as much of. And, there's obviously some warning signs there from a coaching perspective on why Alabama can't defend that. But I think Alabama is also going to be looking at, Missouri does not have, Tennessee and South Carolina might have the top 2, or at least, 2 of the top edge rushing rooms in the country. And that's been a real problem for Alabama to defend. And I don't know if Mizzou's quite there at that level. And so I think looking at all that on film will probably help get the players a little bit more fired up for this game, knowing that there's some things they can exploit matchups wise. So I tend to lean toward that the more fired up Alabama team will show up, but I mean, we really haven't seen it for a long time. And so to me, it has to show up now. Otherwise I'm not convinced it's going to show up for the rest of the season, and things could really get in a tailspin. I mean, if they lose this game, you're talking probably a 4-loss Alabama team, because then I don't think they go to LSU and win that game. Oklahoma on the road all of a sudden becomes real weird. And then if they're reeling, I mean Auburn. Oklahoma's bad, but to me that still becomes weird. And then you talk in Auburn, which, Auburn's going to be fired up to beat them. They're pretty horrible, but it could tailspin. So they know this is a game they have to show up for. But I mean, Missouri knows the same thing, so we'll see.
Let's take a look at the Alabama offense now. We got the PFF grades just pulled up here for the YouTube viewers. Can you give us 2 weaknesses and then 2 strengths within this offense? You could quick hit it if you want. Don't have to drag out these ones. But what are 2 things that they need to know that are positives about this Alabama offense, and 2 things that are negatives?
Okay, well, the easy first positive is the explosive plays. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a 17-year-old freshman in Alabama's wide receiver room. He's absurd.
I've not heard about this. What's his name?
His name is Ryan Williams. Payton. He's really good. I mean, that is what when Jalen Milroe is at his best, is when those 2 primarily are connecting. That I think is a huge strength. They can absolutely turn what seems like a bad drive into a 75-yard touchdown in a blink of an eye. DeBoer loves the explosive play. It's a super big part of their offense, and they're good at it when Milroe is hitting his throws. So that I would say is one strength. One weakness off the jump for sure. Their running game has not been as involved as a lot of people expect. They have 2 guys, Justice Haynes and Jam Miller. Jam Miller's gets a little bit more of the carries. It's not as much of a discrepancy as I think we've seen from like Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll. But Alabama just really hasn't used them much at all. I mean, there was a 3-game stretch, I think, leading into Tennessee where the 2 of them combined only had 11 carries, in each of those games. So they really don't lean on the run game much. And I think it's been at their detriment a lot. I really think them failing to get that established hurts them. They can get behind the chains really early in drives because of that. And Mizzou has a very good 3rd down defense. So, obviously how much of that is smoke with not playing very good teams, I don't know. But Alabama does get itself into a lot of like 3rd and long and not as many 3rd and manageable situations because they don't lean on the running game. So I don't think Miller Hayes are bad by any means from like when you talk about it as a weakness, but I think the way they just don't lean on it makes that for sure a weakness. Another strength, I think their offensive line has actually been pretty good. They were banged up to start the season, but they found a lot of continuity. Tyler Booker is going to be an NFL offensive lineman. That guy's a stud. Caden Proctor was statistically the worst offensive lineman in college football last year and has now been great for them at left tackle as a true sophomore. They got Parker Brailsford, the Washington transfer, is good. Jaden Roberts is their right guard. He's fine. And then Elijah Pritchett's a former 5-star at right tackle. He's good. So those guys, if none of them get banged up in the game, I think they can do well against Missouri's pass protection. And then last weakness, I think I go back to Milroe. Just with the accuracy stuff. He hits the deep ball, but he started the year where you saw it looked like he was going to make a jump in kind of the intermediate throws, which was the big area of the field that like NFL scouts wanted to see him jump in. I think everyone wanted to see him make a jump in. And since then, the accuracy is just fell off a cliff, even on some of the deep balls. It feels just like a confidence thing. I think he's just lost right now. And, that I think obviously plays into Mizzou's benefit because their DBs aren't very good. So if Milroe's not hitting his passes, that can, maybe help Mizzou out a little bit. But that I think is definitely a weakness for Alabama. If he's not hitting that underneath stuff, and you're solely relying on the deep ball, they've lost games like that, and they could lose another one. So
what's Alabama's record with Ty Simpson at quarterback then?
Across the games they've played?
Yeah.
Probably 4-3. I think they'd probably lose another one. You probably don't get Georgia if you have Ty Simpson instead of Milroe. They'd probably still win the other ones. South Florida was weird, but I think they probably still got that one. It's a good question though.
Good question. Just going over to the other side of the ball. Guys like LT Overton, I mean, they get a ton of the buzz. This was a Bama team that actually did lose. I don't think people realize they did lose quite a bit on that side of the ball. I mean, the best safety in the country left Alabama after last season. That side of the ball has been a bit maligned, though, for
Yeah.
a lot of the year. I mean, they got absolutely shredded by Vanderbilt. It's just not a typical elite Bama defense that I think a lot of people have been used to. So I'm curious, what has kind of been the ups and downs on that side of the ball? What maybe is an area you could see Missouri looking to exploit?
The ups and downs, I think that, to go back to the start of the year. So Alabama hired Kane Womack from South Alabama, their head coach. Obviously, Missouri got his defensive coordinator, Corey Batoon, and Womack's mantra is all about turnovers. They play he calls it the swarm defense. They want to get to the ball. They want to win the turnovers. He talks about a thing that they have every week called game changers, which is like sacks, turnovers, or turnover opportunities. And he like charts all that.
Sounds
And they are all,
familiar.
yeah, they're all about the turnovers. That is the number one thing with this defense. And for a lot of the year, it's felt really like an all or nothing thing where they either get a lot of the turnovers or they, give up big plays and then really look bad, like I said, against some of these kind of meticulous offenses or tricky offenses like South Carolina and Vandy that can, that keep the ball for a lot of the game and kill you in the time of possession. And that's really hurt this defense. I don't know if Missouri exactly does that, but against Tennessee, it was actually a lot better. They forced 3 turnovers in the first half. Alabama's offense just could not cash them in. They made Iamaleava from Tennessee look real bad when he was out there for a good chunk of that game. So that's been the real up and down thing. Is I think their biggest struggle is when they face teams that really like to hold on to the ball, take advantage of just keeping the defense on the field, tiring them out over the course of the game. It goes back to this team not really playing complete games. This defense gets tired, whether it's them, staying on the field because the offense can't score or can't sustain long drives or vice versa. They've really struggled on 3rd and 4th downs. They've given up 2 35-yard touchdown passes on 4th down this year. Same amount of yardage. It happened against Vandy and South Carolina. So Missouri 3rd and short, I think will be crucial to pick those up and just keep this Alabama defense on the field. And then the other thing, I've thought about this since this matchup came out. I always thought, and obviously Brady Cook doesn't play, it's going to hurt Missouri. This game could be a real shootout. Alabama's secondary is not what it was. You mentioned Caleb Downs is gone. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold, the 2 corners, were gone. They replaced those guys, okay. They're really young in the corner room. And the guys are good. They're 5-star recruits, but they're still freshmen. And, Luther Burden and Theo Wees will be hard matchups for them, And then in the safety room, they got a guy from Michigan named Keon Sabb who's injured, not playing. He broke his foot against Tennessee. So they'll have a true sophomore named Bray Hubbard at free safety. That I think is a guy who will probably get targeted. And then, these corners, Missouri can absolutely burn them if Brady Cook / Drew Pine, I guess, can connect on some deep balls. There is some real weaknesses there. Otherwise, in the Alabama defense, these 2 linebackers, Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell, are phenomenal. I think they're both NFL guys. Deontay Lawson's a captain. Jahad Campbell, absolutely terrifying. Don't walk next to him after Alabama loses a game. I don't recommend it. But he's a beast. And then up front, their defensive front's good. They do some weird things. So you mentioned Kenny LT Overton. He plays the bandit position, which is like a bigger kind of defensive end. You see it also in Mizzou. I guess they have Corey Batoon. That's probably what Darius Smith would have been if he would have been healthy. Him and Jamarian Latham play that. They're both good. Tim Smith and Tim Keenan, their defensive tackles. They kind of move all of them around on the D line and can get to the quarterback if an offensive line is not at its best, which Missouri struggled against some of that, like right down your throat pressure against Auburn, from what I remember. So that can certainly be kind of a vulnerability too. But I look for Missouri to do kind of like a combo of get Marcus Carroll going, keep Alabama's defense on the field, and then take advantage of some of these mismatches at receiver, because they're definitely there.
Cool
Jack,
that they brought back Devontae Smith, by the way. On the
yeah, he switched. Actually, I think the receiver Devontae Smith, I thought I'd heard something that said he was actually their best corner when he was there too. Like he was that good.
I do remember that. I remember
Yeah.
there being like when he won the Heisman, they were like saying he could be like the best corner
Yep.
too.
He was like a two-way. He was like a two-way guy, but obviously he's skinny. So I don't think he would have done very well at corner. But
Jack, I'm gonna let you put your Mizzou goggles back on because I think it's time to jump into this injury report.
Oh, God.
Heading into this Mizzou Alabama game. For those that know, we do record on Thursdays. It's 4:24 Central Time right now, so still waiting on that Thursday injury report to come out. But this is the one from Wednesday. It's updated at 7 p.m. Central. It's a long one. Let's look at it. Buki Cooper, doubtful. Nate Noel, doubtful. Brady Cook, doubtful. That's 3. Before you jump in with your own opinion, let me run through the full thing.
Yeah.
So everyone knows, because I know we have some opinions on why there's so many players on here. Of course, we have the 4 listed out at the top. Not expecting them to be back this season. But let's look at the questionable. Sidney Williams, Travis Johnson, Dalen Carnell, Joseph Charleston, Caden Green, and Brett Norfleet. And then Marquise Johnson is listed at probable. Payton, we'll start with you on this because I know you have some opinions on it and you probably could explain it a lot better than anyone else. But you go right ahead with what you think about this long injury list as of Wednesday.
Well, it's some immaculate gamesmanship from Eli, I'll tell you what. Like, if you actually think that Travis Johnson, Dalen Carnell, any of those, I really think every single one of those questionables will play because they literally, like, there was nothing about them exiting the game at all on Saturday. I mean, Dalen Carnell and Travis Johnson made plays on the last drive. Caden Green was the left guard on the touchdown scoring drive. Like, those guys are not going to miss the game. Brett Norfleet, maybe. I know he keeps messing up his shoulder over and over. I don't really care if Sidney Williams plays, I'll be honest. The obviously the headlines are going to be Mookie Cooper, Brady, and especially Brady Cook and Nate Noel. Especially Cook and Noel because I mean, Pete Thamel, who Lord knows who's his source on staff is, said that that Missouri is pessimistic. Yeah, that's a good guess there, Kenny, for those on the YouTube.
Yeah, he definitely calls.
Kenny thinks it might be Eli himself. Mizzou is pessimistic on Brady Cook's chances of playing, and he outright said Nate Noel is not going to play. I don't know how much I believe either of those really, especially the Brady Cook one. I know obviously Brady Cook was probably loaded up on painkillers on Saturday and adrenaline, everything. You're not going to feel that till the next day. I would be real shocked, like, unless the staff straight up tells him you are not playing in this game, if he does not at least give it a go. And you know what? A lot of this could also be Drink kind of just like giving Brady Cook a little bit of a built-in, like, hey, like, he's probably going to play, but look, he's doubtful. We don't think he's going to play even. So if he plays and doesn't play well, it's because he's not healthy. And if he plays and plays well, it's because he's literally Superman. So I think it's just Drink having a little bit of fun with this injury report more than anything else, to be honest. Quite frankly, I didn't even think when I first heard about this injury report rule coming to the SEC, I was like, this is great because Mizzou has been so evasive with injuries over the years. And I didn't even think about the fact that Drinkwitz would use it to troll a little bit. And
it's
I
like
think
the
that's
opposite
what's going on here. Yeah.
This is somewhat longer. Like I don't think when I was on the beat in 2022, there was one that was half this size. This is incredible. I've never seen one this long for Mizzou. And coming into the week, I was thinking, like, this team probably can't take any more injuries. And I wasn't expecting to see this many.
They took all the injuries.
Especially all the or a handful of starters.
There's 4 safeties on this. There's 4 safeties on this injury report. Yeah, I think, you know, if you want to take a little bit of a victory lap from a Mizzou perspective, I can tell you firsthand the Alabama boards, actually are also not believing the Brady Cook thing. They think, you know, they saw him go to the hospital too. They think he's playing. But, you know, I saw I like our chances a lot more now with Brady Cook out. So, you know, that's kind of obvious, but hey, you know, you had some Alabama fans a little bit nervous if he plays. So take that for what it is. I think too, if he plays, you know, I think back to the Georgia game for Alabama, like they dialed up a lot of pressure on Carson Beck really made him uncomfortable. Definitely if it's knowing it's a hobbled Brady, and if it's going to be Drew Pine the backup, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to come after him. I think that's going to be, you're going to see a lot of blitzing on Saturdays. So I'll throw that as a prediction. Payton, I think you're spot on. There's absolutely no way you have to have Dalen Carnell for this game. I think he's going to be a crucial one. Kenny highlighting that. Do you want to share this, Kenny? You did find this stat. I'll let you share it.
He's grinning ear to ear. He's so excited.
He's so excited.
Everyone.
I looked into this beforehand a couple days ago when the talks were that maybe Drew Pine will start this game. He's completed a pass against Alabama, albeit it was back in the 2020-2021 season in the Rose Bowl college semifinal when Alabama defeated Notre Dame 31-14. The starting quarterback for that Notre Dame team was Ian Book. The starter for Alabama was Mac Jones. Who played the toughest game against Mac Jones up until this point in that season?
Your Tigers.
Sean Robinson and the Missouri Tigers. Eli Drinkwitz's first game, actually. That's a fun little factoid. I know Drinkwitz said at a presser earlier this week, he got no sleep when he found out that Bama was going to be his first game as head coach at Missouri, and they played him more tough than everyone else did that year, pretty much. So,
yeah.
We brought it up before. He played until the final second. He was coaching the entire
He scored
game.
a walk-off touchdown, technically.
They did.
So I looked at this injury report and thought the same thing as Payton. There's no way that probably all of those questionable guys, I would expect them all to play. For me, I think the big one is Nate Noel, because I think, again, Alabama's defense has been taken out of some games when the running game hasn't been going, or has gotten going, excuse me. And I think you're going to have to try and do that with Marcus Carroll, because I think if you can, you're going to have a lot more success on some of these deep passes, but it is a bummer that you don't have your kind of other, important running back to kind of do that. Cause I do think that's going to be a big piece. And then, watch for Bama blitzing. Cause if it's Drew Pine, they might try and have him leaving the field on a stretcher after that game. Kane Womack's gonna send the house.
Quite frankly, this game isn't worth discussing if Drew Pine starts it. I mean, I'll be honest. There's about a 0% chance Missouri keeps it within 30 if Drew Pine starts this game. I'll be real dead honest. They're just not going to. I do like that you bring up getting the run game going and handling the blitz will be a big thing. It's going to be a really huge day for Missouri's O-line. It's been a little up and down at times this year. They played 3 really good quarters against Auburn and kind of got beat in the fourth quarter there. They're going to have to pick up the blitzes quick. Brady's going to have to, if it is Brady or Drew Pine, whoever the QB is, they're going to have to throw hot a lot. I'm assuming in this game. Hopefully that leads to a big game from Luther. Luther gets the ball quickly, let him create, and like you said, Knowlton, I mean, no matter who's at running back, it's just going to be a war in the trenches. They're going to have to try and get some semblance of a run game going, because if it's Drew Pine, you're not going to want to throw the ball much. And if it's a hobbled Brady Cook, you're going to want to have him have a run game to kind of lean on a bit so he doesn't have to try and do so much on a bad leg.
I'll throw this out too. I think Luther Burden's worth having a conversation about too, from an Alabama defensive standpoint. It just made me think they've played some decent receivers. Georgia doesn't really have the dudes that I think they used to have at receiver. Tennessee's got some guys, but they really have not played a player like Luther Burden. And I'm really interested to see, especially how this kind of young secondary handles him. I think Alabama's linebackers are going to have to step up a lot in the tackling when they get the ball to Burden underneath. But he's got a real opportunity, like you said, to have a game, because this Alabama team has struggled with missed tackles as well. Something we're familiar with on the Mizzou side as well a little bit, but they've struggled with missed tackles a good amount. And Luther Burden's not a guy that's easy to tackle if you're good at making them. So, I wonder if they get creative with using him, do some backfield stuff, and really put him in situations where you have to force Alabama's players to tackle one-on-one, because that Luther Burden could take advantage of that. That is a piece in this game. So there you go. Am I leading back? Do I have to cut back to the or is it still Payton?
This is your guys' story,
Do
so
you
I'd
want to see
assume
it?
you want to
Yeah, I
touch
mean,
on it.
Oh yeah. Dive in.
okay.
I like Kenny, you go.
Yeah, projected starters as recruits. Great photo of a smiley Brady Cook in his white Chaminade jersey. This one, it was kind of a tough one that we put together. Jack and I did. Also, if you didn't know, I work at Rivals again. I don't think we ever said that. But this is for the Mizzou Today site and for Tide Illustrated. So I put the quarterbacks in here. I just left it as Brady Cook. I'll update it if we do get confirmation that he will be out. But it's just kind of fun to scroll through. So Brady Cook was a 3-star. Jalen Milroe was a 4-star and ranked 77th in the nation back in the class of 2021. And Brady Cook was in the class of 2020. I ended up putting Marcus Carroll at running back because I haven't done it before and usually just rolled with Nate Noel. But that Pete Thamel report kind of had me thinking just to go with Marcus Carroll here. Listed as a 2-star back in the class of 2020, going to Georgia State, compared to Jamarian Miller, who was in the class of 2022 as a 4-star. So it's just a fun thing to kind of look through. I mean, we've seen these offensive guys before: Theo Weiss, Mookie Cooper, Luther Burden, Jeremy Bernard was a Michigan State transfer. He was ranked 6th in the state of Nevada. That's kind of an interesting thing to look at. He was a 4-star back in the class of 2022.
He was a 2-star, two-time transfer too, because he went to Washington with DeBoer and then Bama. He's good too. He's obviously not Luther Burden, but if there's a guy that they like to use a little bit like Luther Burden, they'll put him in the backfield sometimes and let him run. He can be like kind of a Swiss Army knife.
Hey, Missouri's got the edge at tight end.
Oh wait, I had a tight end thing too for Bama. CJ Dupree. I saw him hurdle a guy against Tennessee, and it was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen because he's like 260 and like 6'6", and he jumped over a guy. It was crazy. But yeah, Maryland transfer.
What's the difference between a tight end Y and a tight end H?
You know what? You're putting me on the spot here because I actually don't remember off the top of my head. They kind of use them both similarly as pass catchers. DeBoer gets a lot more out of his tight ends than I think.
I assume it's like a U and a U tight end and all that. Like one's more of a blocker and one is more of your vertical threat. But I'm not informed enough about the intricacies.
Me neither, to be honest. I think I was told once, and it went in one ear and out the other. Not a ball knower.
The big one thing I noticed reading this, like the big distance setter is in both of the trenches. You look at Missouri's, I mean, they got like Chris McClellan as the top guy. He was a 4-star transfer. I mean, it's a 5.9 rating, so it's not like a super, super high end one, but it is a 4-star. But I mean, you look at Alabama's, it's 4-star, 5-star. You got another 4-star there, 4-star, 4-star. Ridiculously stacked position group on both sides of the trenches for Bama. So
I want to show. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, Missouri is going to have to get creative because if they try and just like bowl forward, like it is like the run game has to get going. The O-line has to play a bit above its head probably, but they got to be creative on offense as well because they're not. If you just go in and expect to run the ball for 4 yards a clip, I think you're going to be sorely disappointed if you're Missouri.
I just want to shout out Johnny Walker's profile picture in this story because it is very funny. In the helmet, he's just got. If you're not watching on the YouTube, he's got that Adidas, like not the Guardian cap, but whatever they call those, the soft helmet, and he's just like grinning in a funny way through it. It's very funny. And you got linebackers, corners, safeties, all that fun stuff. Yeah, it's a man. I mean, this game if Brady plays could turn into something fun with how bad these secondaries can sometimes be and how good the wide receiver rooms are. I think it's kind of interesting, but yeah, it'll be a fun one. You guys have any more questions for me, or should we do predictions?
I think we can get to predictions now. It's a game. It's a game that both. I mean, we don't even really know who's going to be out there for Missouri, so it's so tough to gauge.
Yeah, Payton, you're the host of this show. I'm not doing your job for you. I'm just the guest.
Well, Knowlton, why don't you go ahead and give your score prediction first?
Oh man. So yeah, like Payton said, this is such a tough call because I genuinely think that after what happened with Brady Cook and Auburn, you know, if you don't get something out of this game, you know, I think that's kind of a poor reflection on your ability to galvanize. Like Missouri desperately needed something like what happened last week. The problem is if Brady was too banged up to actually go, you're going to be in a real spot of trouble. So I did a prediction for this like on another show and tried to kind of pick in between that to sort of find a middle ground. Because genuinely, if Brady plays and he can look somewhat decent, I think there is a world where Mizzou can keep this to like a 14-10 point game. I genuinely do. Especially if the wrong Alabama team shows up, I really think there's a world where that can happen. Drink's road record pushes against that a lot. He's off on the road. I think I'll stick with my one I made on the other show. I went 42-17 Alabama because I think if Pine plays, I don't even know how you get to 17. And if Brady Cook plays, maybe he only plays a half or something weird happens. But that was the middle ground I kind of found.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea. I could say any number and I wouldn't even believe myself. I really don't know. I really won't know until Saturday what my true feelings are about this game, depending on who's playing and just kind of going into it a little bit more. I'm going to put a number down. It's probably going to make me look stupid, or I'm going to just somehow slip into the right number. I really have no idea where to go. And I was just thinking like 35-13 is just where I'm kind of leaning.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there, Kenny. I know for certain I think Missouri is going to lose. I don't think a world exists where Missouri wins this game, quite frankly. Whether Brady is playing or not. If it's Drew Pine, my score prediction, this isn't my prediction because I think Brady will give it a go at least. My score prediction, if it's Drew Pine, is 38-3. Like, I don't think Missouri does anything all day. And I think the defense gives up pretty early and they just take their foot off the gas. Alabama does late. I think Brady will play. I think they'll hang tough for a little, but with a hobbled Brady, such a big talent mismatch in the trenches. I'll be honest, I still, for the most part, am really unimpressed by how Drink prepares his teams for road environments. I don't think it's going to get any better in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'll take Alabama by a score of 35 to... I'll say Brady Cook is able to lead Mizzou to a couple touchdown drives here. I'll say 17 is my pick.
Say that again.
Sorry,
35-17.
You guys also pick smartly because Alabama does not kick field goals. So going with a score that involves a field goal is always risky. I think they've kicked like 7 field goals this season. It's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
That's my last thing I'll throw in about Bama. Yeah, this is going to be something. I'm really intrigued. This is the most I've watched the availability report this year than I ever have since it's got introduced. So we'll see. I think for the sake of the game, you just want to see Brady Cook go because I think that, like Payton said, I think that's the only way it even stays close. So we shall see. But if the wrong Alabama team shows up, this could get real frisky in BDS. 2:30 p.m. kickoff. ABC. You can watch it on if you're not going. If you are going, have fun. Come give me a holler. My address. I'm just kidding. I'm not saying my address on the air. But yeah, enjoy the atmosphere. Bryant-Denny is a very, very cool place to watch a game. I've thoroughly enjoyed. Even if when Alabama's look bad, it's still really fun. It's full. Dixieland Delight is crazy to listen to the crowd sing it. But anyway, enough surmising about Alabama. Like I said, 2:30 ABC, number 21 Missouri, number 15 Alabama. This will be an interesting one. See if Missouri can pull off the road upset and probably knock Alabama out of the playoff, which would be a banner day for the Mizzou Tigers. We shall see. For the rest of this show, though, I'm taking over the hosting duties back from Payton. This is my job now again, and we'll finish with quick hits. Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish out the show. I've snatched back hosting duties from Payton, but now I'll kick it over to Kenny for Jerseys of the Week. What's your Jersey of the Week, Kenny?
My Jersey of the Week goes to Mizzou Class of 2025 target, Tobi Haastrup. This was a cool instance, just a cool moment I got to see. I was talking with him after his practice on Tuesday, and a bunch of junior high students. They were there to watch the junior high game that was going on right after his practice, and they all wanted to take photos with him. I heard one kid was asking for some motivation tips, and then he had a bunch of teams like bracelets on, like those little rubber bracelets that you get probably on your visits. And I was interested to see which ones he had, because if he had a Mizzou one on, I feel like some people would have liked that photo. But he had like LSU and Boston College and just some other schools he's been to and taken visits at. I think Texas A&M as well. And he just handed them out. I think Illinois was on there as well. They think the kids were like, oh, I want the LSU one. So just a really cool thing to see from him. It's his first year playing high school football, and he's gotten all these offers and all this attention, but he's still a very humble guy. And Mizzou's in a good spot for him. I can say that pretty confidently. Mizzou is in his top 4. Yeah, it is Scoop. He told me that inside his top 4. But I had a story on him about some of those connections that Mizzou had, and very, very personable guy. And the team did a really good job of connecting with him and his mother in a spot, in a position he's never been in before. He just started football recruiting. He's never had like these opportunities, doesn't know too much about the college football world, but there's people guiding him through it, and he's going to make a decision on December 2nd. But you can go read that story on Rivals.com just about him and just where his recruitment is kind of moving forward.
Look at that shameless plugging from you.
Plug.
Unbelievable. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. This is a great connection. Sounds like a guy I want on my team. You know the move, Toby. That's what people always reply, right? You know the move. Come to the zoo.
Vibes. Very cool, Kenny.
Payton jersey.
My jersey of the week is going to be a fun one. Missouri baseball got a commitment from Cody Goff, a switch hitting catcher from Delray Beach, Florida. He's class of 2026, and you may know his sister, Coco Goff. Coco Goff is a sibling of a Mizzou baseball
is
commit.
a sister.
So Coco Goff might be heading down to Taylor Stadium for a couple games. You never know.
That would be so sick.
So be on the lookout.
Jack, you know a little bit more about this than me, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Coco Goff is like, she's dating someone as famous, or not as famous, but she's also dating someone famous, right? Like they're a power couple.
I have no idea.
I'll look. Coco Goff is.
I'm gonna look it up.
Tennis players in the world.
Yeah, Coco Goff. I thought I was gonna get a tennis question. I was like, I don't know the.
What would we have asked you? But... Hey, Coco Goff is good at tennis, right?
Hey, leave me that alone.
Like we didn't know that. He's from Atlanta.
I thought she had like
I'm not seeing a celeb
as well. So they're not no power couple. Never mind. I thought maybe we could see a power couple show up to Columbia, but equally as cool, Coco Goff.
I want to know
if Coco Goff in a
any...
Mizzou hat will like be the Drake in a Mizzou hoodie.
Yes, I love it. That could be the new PFP whenever that happens for like a day. I want to know if she has any eligibility left. Can we get her on the tennis team? Just win like a natty.
I feel like competing in major tennis would probably
not nowadays. It doesn't matter if she's won money. Who cares?
I don't know about that.
That's very cool news, and congrats to Cody Goff. He picked a good school. My jerseys of the week. We're going back down to the Mizzou-Bama matchup. I'm gonna go Jackson Cantwell. Mizzou people probably know him well. And that's because he's actually going to be at Bama this weekend for the game, for the Mizzou-Bama game. I'm not trying to hype up any interest in Bama. This was just the first tweet I saw. If you're watching on the YouTube, it's a photo of him and Kalen DeBoer. But he is a heavy Mizzou target. And, I mean, he could have gone to the Bama-Georgia game. He could have gone to the Iron Bowl. But he's going to watch him play Mizzou. And, I think there is a thing to this for visits, when a kid gets a chance to see two of the schools that he's considering play against each other, that's an important thing. So a big time Mizzou recruit, is going to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Definitely one the Tigers are going to want to keep. Rivals has him as the number 1 player in 2026. So a win over Bama. You'd be doing it in front of this kid. That would be something. So it's like Mizzou, Bama, Nebraska
Georgia,
is one
Nebraska,
of them.
I think are the 4 that are like circling the drain the most.
Yeah. So this is a big one. Cantwell.
Very critical nice. One.
Yeah, very critical recruit. Very nice kid also. Out of Nixa. Mo. So yeah, just wanted to I wanted to throw that one out there because that's, Kenny's not the only one that gets recruiting news on this show. All right.
Yep.
Come on.
Yep. Moving on. All right. Next.
I was
I
also
like
Enough
stalling.
about your
He's the
Bama
main
stuff. Let's
bird.
go.
I was also stalling because I didn't have that sound clip.
No, I
I'm
like
playing it
no
again
cap, and he's the main bird.
because you interrupted. Shawnee's main bird of the week, Kenny.
March Chinese main bird of the week. I want to get back into the Cardinal world. We haven't talked about the St. Louis Cardinals in a while with the season ending last month for the birds in mid or Eastern Mo. But St. Louis Cardinals president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak, we won't be saying that for too much longer, said shortstop Mason
Money
Wynn
Mo.
faced surgical procedure to remove a cyst from his hand. Wynn, who moved to Jupiter, Florida to spend his offseason near the spring training headquarters, was scheduled to have the stitches removed last week. The procedure won't impact his offseason. Also, great news for Mason Wynn that it's not going to impact his offseason. Today, he won a Fielding Bible trophy, which goes to the best shortstop.
Ridiculous.
This past season, so very cool for him in his rookie season.
Yeah, good for you, but that was Francisco Lindor's award. I would like it to be known, not Mason Wynn's.
I have no take on this. Main bird of the week, Payton.
My main bird of the week is going to be Chase Daniel, the former Eagle. Of course, that's what I think he's most known for, because he has been named to the 2024 SEC Football Legends class. Yes, Chase Daniel, all those SEC games he was in, those SEC teams he was beating.
Yeah, it's basically the top.
I think Gabe DeArmond said he was like 4-0 against SEC teams at Mizzou, so he's never lost to one.
I thought Gabe was saying that the games that Chase Daniel has come back for, and that he's
he might
for.
be.
I thought that's the joke.
That's
he was
even
making.
worse. It's not even
That's funnier if that's
If Gabe
the case.
If Gabe remembered that or somehow went back and looked at all the games Chase Daniel was visited for, that's incredible. But I think the more I think about it, your reasoning makes a lot more sense.
Let's just be. Did you beat Arkansas in the Cotton Bowl? Isn't that a win over an SEC?
They beat Arkansas in one of his games, yes. So that's one. We're not gonna waste time and look up all the others. When I think of SEC, I think of Chase Daniel. Obviously, when I think SEC, I think Block M, Old Gold Block M. This is just quite the SEC era that they're picking. But no, it is cool for Chase Daniel. He said he'd be at the ceremony in Atlanta, I believe it is, when they induct him. So that's cool.
Very cool. Congrats to Chase Daniel, legend. If you want to come on the show, open invitation. My main bird of the week. We're sticking in the world of college football. I went a little away from Mizzou for this one. My main bird is the Kennesaw State Owls. The Owls won their first ever game as an FBS school on Wednesday night. And not only that, they beat Liberty, and Liberty was undefeated coming into that game. Very fun to watch. You can see if you're not watching on the YouTube, there's this tweet I pulled up. Kennesaw State's program began in 2015. Brian Bohannon has been the Owls head coach the entire time. He has a 72-36 record, 3 Big South titles, and made the FCS playoffs 4 times. And now they're in the FBS and has his first FBS win.
They were 28-point dogs.
Yep. Yeah. And over an undefeated team, the best team in their conference. So congrats to the Owls. This was always fun to see. It's what college football is all about.
That was Liberty's second loss in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
The Owls came to play.
The Owls came to play in there. It looks like a high school stadium. I was watching the game, and it was really funny because they deflected the ball out of bounds, and we had the classic everyone rushes the field, but then they realized they have a second left and they have to get everyone off and run one more like bullshit play. Those are always hilarious. I think of the one where do y'all remember Utah BYU when they had 3 of them and they rushed the field and then there was like 3 penalties
and BYU lost every single time.
Yep, all 3 scenarios. So congrats to Kennesaw. Shout out the Owls. Had to give them a mention. Best things we learned. Payton, what's the
best thing I learned this week? I'm not sure if people heard, but Brady Cook went to the hospital during Mizzou's homecoming game against Auburn and then came back and led a 21-17 victory after Mizzou trailed at one point 17-3. If you didn't hear that news, now you have. And for that heroic performance, Kirk Herbie, named Brady Cook as his top performing player of Week 8. Drinkwitz retweeted it. He got his photo on the graphic. Brady Cook, that is not Elijah Drinkwitz. That would be weird. Yeah, that's just one last hurrah that I wanted to shout out Brady Cook for.
Do you think Brady Cook, for being first on this list, gets to meet Ben for Curb Street's dog? That's the award for being
He
first.
just committed to Texas, didn't he?
Yeah, he flipped from Georgia before the game. For those that don't know or aren't paying attention, because you should be paying attention to this, there's a former Mizzou player on this list as well.
The Colorado defensive line?
Yep. Arden Walker.
Oh
my God.
There's your connection.
Did he actually do anything in that game, or?
I have no idea. I'm
gonna look it up, and I'll get back to you.
Once, and it was the Nebraska
keep
game
going.
last year.
Keep going with your.
You do that. You do that, Payton. What did you learn, Kenny?
This is a cool one. I bet a lot of people were really hoping to see this one, but JFA, Jackson effing Arnold, will start for Oklahoma this week against Ole Miss. Ended up playing in this past week's game against South Carolina. Very ugly loss for Oklahoma in that one. But moving forward, Jackson Arnold is back in the starting role for the Sooners. Thought we should know that, given Mizzou will be playing Oklahoma in 2 weeks.
Good point. Oklahoma is no good, man. They are not good at all. Also, Arden Walker, this past week against Arizona, had 3 total tackles, 2 solo, 1 assisted, and he had his first sack of the year.
There you go. Glad to know he's kicking it with Dion.
I didn't know he was from Denver, actually. Yep. I really did not know that. That's even a logical geographic move.
Well done, Arden. Yeah, Oklahoma's real bad. I don't know if I'm very worried about Missouri in that one, as long as they can get healthy.
Yeah, that would be a real embarrassment if Missouri loses that one. Yeah. Missouri may not be playing for a playoff spot like after this weekend, but that's a game you got to get up for.
Indeed. My best thing I learned this week. I'm differentiating completely.
NBA basketball.
I knew this would get the anger from Payton that I was hoping. Yes, I'm talking about the NBA in October. My best thing I learned this week: LeBron and Bronny got to make their debut together with the Lakers. And you know what? I don't like the negative discourse about it. I think this is cool and it should be enjoyed. And even if it is a gimmick, LeBron deserves it because of his career. So I thought it was fun. And yes, the NBA is back, which means I get to start talking about the NBA, and Payton can start getting annoyed about it when it's not April. So,
yeah, man. I mean, this was cool. Like, this moment was cool. We'd be remiss if we didn't point out Bronny, I think, was the only Lakers player that saw playing time and didn't score.
Yeah, I think he played 3 minutes and then they took him out,
but it is a cool thing. I mean, like, I thought Frank Gore was going to try and last so he and Frank Gore Jr. could do this. He was very close. He was just like 2 or 3 years off. But I mean, cool for Bron and Bronny. But it is NBA in October, Knowlton. Let's give it a rest, man.
I liked the commercial that they did with Nike where he filled his car with Fruity Pebbles.
I saw that. Yeah,
that was goated. I think. Yeah. Kenny's got it pulled up. The grin on his face. Bron. I love LeBron. It's.
Don't be late, Rook.
I'm gonna miss Brown when he retires. Especially if Bronny's like out of the league and got a couple of years. That would be unfortunate. Anyway, that's all I got. I don't know. NBA is back.
Yeah,
very good thing. Almost college basketball season too, Payton.
I know.
He's looking out the window. He speeds off in the car. He's like, clean my driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so good. All right. That's all I got. Joke, Payton?
This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. I think you guys are really going to hate this one.
Great.
Where does a sheep go to get its hair cut?
The barber.
That's it.
No way. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, let's go. There's no chance that's wrong. There's no chance that's wrong.
Yep.
Love it.
That's it.
Yeah,
Thanks. Good sheep impression. All right. that'll do it. Hope you enjoy the Bama game. Well, try your best to enjoy the Bama game, unless it kind of goes to shit fast. But we'll see. We'll see. You know, we'll remain optimistic. Maybe the injury reports will be the biggest victory of the weekend, as the list just gets whittled down, hopefully, to just Marquise Johnson probable and the 4 outs. But we're not thinking about them anyway. That's enough of my ramble. Hope you guys enjoy the game. We'll be back to recap it on Monday. We'll see you next time.